1, what is your name, please?
My name is Alexandra Mosca.
Number 2.
My name is Alexandra Mosca.
Number 3.
My name is Alexandra Mosca.
Only one of these people is the real Alexandra Mosca and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. Now let's meet our panel. Star and host of Downey on CNBC, Morton Downey Jr. Co-star of the popular Mama's Family, Dorothy Lyman. Star of the new feature film Popcorn, Tom Villard. And to tell the truth's very own, Kitty Carlisle. Here's the host of To Tell the Truth, Gordon Elliott.
Good morning and welcome, panel. Tom, please take a seat anytime. The train won't leave till you're aboard. Let's get to the first story of the program, presented by our first team of challengers, all three of whom, as you've heard, claim to be Alexandra Mosca. And here is her story. I, Alexandra Mosca, posed in the nude for Playboy. As a matter of fact, I posed twice, but it was a first for someone in my profession. I'm a funeral director. My posing nude shook up the funeral industry. But I am serious about my profession, and I perform my work with a heartfelt compassion for my clients and their loved ones. I even write a column in which I answer the difficult questions people have about funerals. One of the questions I'm most frequently asked by my fellow funeral directors is, why did you pose nude for Playboy? Signed, Alexandra Mosca. Welcome, contestants, and we'll get the bare facts about Alexandra Mosca right after this. Welcome back to Tell the Truth. All right, panel. These three people all claim to be Alexandra Mosca, funeral director who posed for Playboy. Let's start the questioning with Kitty.
Thank you. Number one, I'd like to follow along on that question. Why did you pose nude for Playboy?
This is something that I'd always wanted to do. I always wanted to be considered a beautiful woman, and they picked the most beautiful.
Number two, how did you get the job?
I had a friend of mine who likes to do paintings of me. He's done 237 paintings of me, and he submitted a photo of me to Playboy.
And number three, do you think funeral directors prey on people and make them buy expensive caskets when there is no need for such a thing?
No, not as a whole. I think there's good and bad in every business.
Thank you. Number three, why did you pose nude?
It was a fantasy I had since I was a teenager.
Thank you. Number two.
I've had that same fantasy since I was a teenager also. For you to pose nude, I mean. Tom, what do you think?
Number one, in a big funeral home, you see the bodies all sort of laid out and finished. Where do you keep them before they're finished and painted and dressed and everything?
I keep them in a work area, which I have downstairs, where we do the embalming and the preparation.
Number two, is it a hands-on process? Do you embalm as well, or do you have other people that do that?
Yes, I do. I actually started embalming originally, and I stay away from it more now as a funeral director, but every now and then I still do it, yes.
Number three, your layout, were you in a coffin, or was it you were a live woman?
I was alive, but I was on a set that they made to look up kind of eerie.
We'll all get there one day, Tom, if you're that curious. Dorothy.
Number one, why did you decide to go into that profession?
I'm second generation. My parents were in the business.
I see. Number two, is there life after death?
I don't think so.
And number three, what's the first thing you do to a corpse when you're preparing it?
Wash it down, wash their hair, little conditioner.
Number one, what is the Greek word for death?
The Greek word for death? I'm afraid I didn't take Greek. I don't know.
Actually, you're not allowed to ask about foreign languages, but generally it's accepted you're out of here. Okay. Mort, I think it's your turn.
I'm really quite concerned to find out about, from number two, if you're serious with this friend of yours who's painted you in the nude 309 times.
We're just friends.
Oh, okay. Your fellow funeral directors, do they kind of make fun of you? Do they feel like you were a real stiff for posing in the nude?
Who are you asking?
Number 2.
Number 2. They actually filed a petition against me in the state.
Time's up, panel. It's time to vote for either number 1, number 2, or number 3. Our team of challengers will receive $500 for each incorrect vote with a guarantee of $1,000. And if the panel is filled completely, the team will receive $3,000. Now, panel, if you're ready to cast your ballots, Kitty, for whom did you vote?
Well, it's very difficult because number 3 really answered the question awfully well about people preying on families, and it's true, there's good and bad in everything. I didn't like number 2's answers quite as well, and I have a very strange reason for voting for number 1. She has a rather low-cut dress on, and I can see part of her bosom. And it looks as though she might be the playgirl, whatever it is, lady.
Jealousy's a curse, Kitty. And Tom. Tom, your answer.
I was certain it was number 3, especially when we got to the conditioner. I saw that in my mind. I don't know. But second generation, that seemed like a logical reason. It made sense, and I did notice your bosom. It's beautiful.
Come on, lads. Lift the standard, Dorothy.
Well, I also voted for number 1. Had nothing to do with her bosom at all. No, it was because of her answer about it being her family business, and I would think that would be the only legitimate reason for a young, beautiful woman to go into that trade.
Okay, good answer. And Morton?
Frankly, I was going to vote for number 2. But after hearing Kitty's reasoning and understanding that Kitty and I are on a similar moral level, and I, too, noticed the low-cut dress, I voted for number 1.
What can I do to save my panel for an absolute humiliation here? Okay, all the votes are in. 4 votes for number 1. Number 2, no votes. Number 3, no votes. Will the real Alexandra Mosca please stand up? All right. There you go. Now, let me ask you, Alexandra. I like the idea of getting your hair washed and not having to tip the hairdresser for the first time in my life. But is it a job that you are disturbed by in anything you have to do?
No, no longer. I've been doing it for many years now. And that's kind of why I posed for Playboy, just to show we were regular people like anybody else. We can embalm and pose nude, too.
You don't embalm in the nude?
No. Some people think I do, though.
Okay. And the boyfriends don't have any problem with this mixture of lifestyle?
No problem. They love it.
Okay, let's start with number 1. 4 votes and a beautiful dress. What exactly do you do, and what's your real name?
My name is Melody Spivak. I'm a secretary in a labor and delivery ward at Good Samaritan Hospital.
Really? Number 2, what's your real name? What do you do?
My name's Tracy Williams, and I'm the winner of the Los Angeles Fastest Waitress race.
Oh, really? Well, you stumped our panel, so of course you'll receive $3,000, and thank you all for being with us today on To Tell the Truth. And we'll be back with a millionaire who kept a secret for over 40 years of his life, right after this. Welcome back to Tell the Truth. Let's meet our next team of challengers.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is John Corcoran.
Number 2.
My name is John Corcoran.
Number 3.
My name is John Corcoran.
Okay, panel, it's up to you to locate the real John Corcoran, and here is his story. Please read along with me on the affidavit. I, John Corcoran, lived with a secret for over 40 years. I was a functional illiterate. Despite the fact that I could not read or write, I graduated from college, became a teacher, and a self-made millionaire. I could not read menus, street signs, business contracts, or even write a simple note to my wife. My children enjoyed what they thought was my reading of fairy tales, but only my wife knew I was making them up. The more successful I became in business life, the harder it became for me to ask for help. Finally, I got the courage to go to an adult learning center and learn to read and write. I now travel all over the country, lecturing on behalf of our nation's literacy program. And I'm proud to say that I've received the National Literacy Award along with First Lady Barbara Bush. But I'm even more proud that I can read this affidavit and I can sign it. John Corcoran. contestants, and let's start the questioning with Morton Downey Jr.
Number 3. What did you teach when you graduated from college?
Mathematics and sociology.
Number 2. What did you make your money from?
Real estate.
Number 1. How did you understand the real estate contracts?
Hired a lawyer.
Number 1, you trusted the lawyer.
I didn't say that.
Ah, great.
Number 1, you don't have to read and write to know that answer, right? Oh.
Who's writing number 1 script? Okay, Dorothy, what would you like?
Number 2, how did this happen? That you got through the first grade without...
There are 1 million people that graduate from our high schools last year that could not read past the 8th grade level. I just passed through the system.
And what does the term functional, number 2, functional illiterate mean? Able to still function, but so you could read something?
Number 2? Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2, functional just means to function, to cope. No, illiterate is an illiterate, cannot read or write.
Tom.
Number 3, was there any part of you that enjoyed fooling people for a certain amount of time?
No, it's a very shameful situation, and you feel ashamed. You feel like a dummy because you're always put in the dumb class.
Number 3, again, how did you get through college without being able to read?
I elected more classes than I was going to take, selected the classes that didn't require written homework, and I cheated.
That's honest.
Number 1, what percentage of our country is functionally illiterate?
There are about 20 million functional illiterates. The population, I guess that would be about 20%? No.
8%.
All right.
Kitty.
Thank you. Number 1, how long did it take you to learn to read and write when you started?
I understood the system within about 3 months, and after that, it was just work, and it didn't take that long.
Thank you. Number 2, did your parents read and write?
Yes.
And how come they let you get through? Number 3, how did they let you get through school without learning to read and write?
They didn't know that I couldn't read and write.
How did you fool them?
The same way I fooled everybody else.
Number 1, why did you think it was more important to fool people than to learn how to read and write?
Because I had to survive.
But number 2, wouldn't it have been better to learn instead of having all this kind of chicanery and... No, number 2?
No, it wasn't that easy. I mean, simple to explain.
Thank you. Number 1, where did...
It's an amazing story, and it's time up, of course, panel, to vote now for either number 1, number 2, or number 3. Our team of challengers will receive $500 for each incorrect vote, with a guarantee of $1,000, and if the panel is filled completely, the team will receive $3,000. And panel, are you ready to cast your ballots? And we'll start with Morton.
Well, I looked at number 1, and he looks like rather than a real estate dealer, he may very well have made his money selling used cars. Number 2 is number 2 is very believable. Number 3 seems like a very sincere, kind, and honest human being who really wanted to succeed in this life and has. And number 3, I'm proud to vote for you.
All right. Okay. Dorothy, what do you think?
I also like number 3's answers very, very much. Number 1, I thought, I think wasn't quite accurate about his figures. So I ended up voting for number 2 because there's something about the way he looks at me which makes me, I would believe it if he told me he could read and write and he couldn't. So I voted for him.
Tom.
I just always thought it was number 3 because he has this kind of confidence, it would seem, to be able to get through those situations and not let people be on to him.
Okay, and Kitty, your thoughts?
Well, they're all wonderful. There's no doubt about it. Number 3 seems like a very interesting scholar, teacher, professor. Number 1 seems like a sharp businessman. He doesn't trust lawyers. And I voted for number 2.
Interesting. Now, the votes are all in, as you can see. No votes for number 1, 2 for number 2, and 2 votes for number 3. Let's find out who the real champion of literacy is. Will the real John Corcoran please stand up? And here is John Corcoran receiving his Literacy Award from President and Barbara Bush. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. John, after so many years, what was that moment that made you decide you had to admit your problem and learn to read and write?
That moment was happened to me every day. I always wanted to learn how to read and write, and I was finally invited to learn how to read and write. And this nation is finally becoming aware of how many people in this country that cannot read and write, and all they have to do is be taught.
And where should they go?
They can go to public libraries, for one, in California.
And the adult learning centers in their cities?
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, John, for coming out and being so honest. Well, let's find out who our imposters really are. Number one, your name and real job, please.
My name is B. Joe Thompson, and I'm a lawyer, Chapter 11 specialist.
Number three, your name and your real profession.
My name is Uncle Butch Ibben, and I'm a square dance caller.
But he calls all the dancers from memory. Well, there were two incorrect votes at $500 a vote, so your team will receive $1,000. And thank you very much for being here today on To Tell the Truth. We've added something new on To Tell the Truth. It's called One-on-One, and we'll be back to play it with someone from our studio audience after this. Welcome back. Now it's time to play One-on-One with someone from our studio audience. Burton, who do you have for us today?
Well, Gordon, today it is Andreas Brockhaus of Tukwila, Washington.
Welcome, Andreas.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay. Andreas, here is your chance to play one-on-one, and I want you to meet a lady with two stories to tell. Her name is Elizabeth Sabine. Welcome, Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is going to tell you two stories, Andreas, only one of which is the truth. If you can spot that true story, you'll win $500. And Elizabeth, we'd like you to tell us your first story.
I'm a vocal coach, and I teach heavy metal rock bands how to scream without damaging their vocal cords.
Now, that may or may not be the story, Andreas. So let's listen to Elizabeth's second story.
I am Gordon Elliott's mother.
Now, panel, to help our friend Andreas win that $500, you're going to ask a question about each story. Let's start with story number one, that of rock band coach, Kitty.
Elizabeth Sabine, how is it possible to teach these people not to ruin their vocal cords? What do you do?
I teach them to go back to childhood and use their childhood passions, which means you tighten your abdominal muscles.
Thank you. Tom.
Elizabeth, who are your most famous rock band clients?
38 Special, the Dons, the Don Barnes in that, and Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, Malice, Megadeth.
Dorothy.
How did they find you to come study with you?
Word of mouth and some advertising I did.
Morton.
Where do you live, Elizabeth?
Well, I live in North Hollywood currently.
Okay, you've heard Elizabeth's first story, Andreas. Let's hear questions about the second story, being my mum. Kitty.
Was he as cute as a little boy as he is today?
Yes, very much so.
Does he have any distinguishing birthmarks?
No. Well, he had a little mole here, and he had it removed.
How many children does he have?
He doesn't have any yet.
Morton.
Would Gordon Elliott's mother tell a lie?
On occasion, she might.
Now, Andreas, you've heard the cross-examination. Is Elizabeth a vocal coach for rock bands, or is she, in fact, my mother?
Well, it's kind of tough. She's pretty convincing either way. I think I'll have to go with the vocal coach for the rock bands. I can kind of see her teaching Axl Rose how to sing. I don't know. It just seems, she seems to fit there.
Well, if you're right, you win $500. Elizabeth, what is your true story?
To tell the truth, I am a vocal coach for rock bands.
Congratulations. You won $500. And thanks for playing one-on-one.
All right.
Elizabeth, I know you brought some tapes with us. Can you show them to us?
Yes, I've got a little clip here of 4 of my students, and they're tightening their abdominal muscles to get their childhood passions back to make this noise.
Let's have a look.
Watch your spirits fly.
for these words. Don't go away. Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, panel, that's it for this edition of To Tell the Truth. We'll see you again next time.
This December 25th, GSN is dreaming of a Betty White Christmas. A 5-hour marathon celebrating Betty White's 50th anniversary and game shows.
I would like to wish my wife happy anniversary.
Find out why everyone loves Betty.
Will you take me home, please, Mr. Ludden?
I certainly will, Mr. Ludden.
A Betty White Christmas, December 25th from noon to 5 p.m. on GSN.
GSN.